Good evening. Nice to see all of you on this, for Los Angeles, cold night here at CSUN. My name is Wendy Gruel, and I am a executive in residence in the David Nazarian College. And welcome to the Nazarian College's Distinguished Speaker Series. Many of these guest speakers are illustrious alumni like Ramesh Damani. This is our first in-person distinguished speaker event since March of 2020. I think it was if I remember correctly, with my colleague Courtney, it was the last event literally that was held on campus, barely. I think they were going to throw us out. But we are thrilled to have you back here on campus today. Some of our previous speakers have included Jane Werwan, who is the founder of Dermalogica, Steve Rabuchin, who is head of Amazon Alexa, and Michael Grillo was an award-winning film producer who was the executive producer of Avengers and Infinity Wars. We are also today joined by Nazarian College alumni chapter board members. And following our event tonight, we are hosting a reception to give everyone a chance to network, learn more about their alumni chapter, and greet fellow matadors. And even though being a student was a long time ago, free food is always good. So I hope you will enjoy. Now, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Ramesh Damani. He came to CSUN as an international student from India and left holding a bachelor's and master's degree in business administration. Following graduation, he started his career in the United States in the emerging technology industry. He eventually returned to India following the Northridge earthquake, which we just spoke about, that I think his wife said, maybe we should go back to India after the Northridge earthquake here in Los Angeles. But he has built an incredible career across multiple sectors of the business world. In addition to technology, he became known as the Wizard for his remarkable investment success and hosts CNBC's long-running Wizards on the Street of the Street. In 2009, Mr. Damani was named chairman of Avenue Supermarkets, D-Mart, India's equivalent of Walmart, and the most valuable retail chain in India. It's my pleasure that I get to introduce today our distinguished speaker, Mr. Ramesh Damani. But before we bring him up to the stage, I'd like to take a few minutes to give you a little bit more information about the Younes Nazarian Distinguished Speaker Series. Each semester, the Nazarian College brings an incredible speaker to come and to campus to share information about their career and their journey to success. We've been fortunate to have dynamic and highly successful speakers to CSUN who have been masters in their craft. Mr. Damani has believed for a long time that educating the citizens of tomorrow leads to a brighter future for all. As such, he has used his vision, his passion, and his resources to provide educational opportunities to students at CSUN and in India, and is going to tell you about his journey in coming to CSUN and his success in the business world. So it is my pleasure to introduce you and welcome Ramesh Damani today for our speaker. Please join us.
Thank you so much, my own cheerleading squad here. Students, faculty, thank you so much for giving me this great honor and asking me to speak today. It gives me goosebumps to speak before my own alma mater. When as a young student, I never thought I'd be here. So it's an astounding privilege for me. Thank you all so much for selecting me for this series. I appreciate that. So my topic is leadership in the global economy. And I just throw some ideas out to you about how the world looks from my end. This is a great book. If you haven't read it, you should probably read it. Robert Fulghum, who said everything he needed to learn, he learned in kindergarten. How to play fair, how to share, how that milk and cookies are good for you. I can't disagree with that. But everything I learned at CSUN, and I learned in America. I came to CSUN as an undergraduate student in the fall of '77. Growing up in India, America seemed like a really cool place. In 1977, India, of course, was a land that time had forgotten. It had not yet discovered its mojo. No wonder all Indians, including me, were very curious to come, study, and work in America. The story I'm about to tell you is actually a fascinating one. Not with my journey in 1977, but in 1972, when US President Richard Nixon went to China for the first time. When he was returning and on the flight back, he was asked how his week in Beijing and Shanghai had been. And he said, with a lot of prophecy, that it was a week that changed the world. In retrospect, when you look back from 72 to 2022, you realize they were very prophetic words and what an extraordinary influence the China-US partnership had in the world in terms of beating inflation, in terms of global trade, in terms of globalization. But today, a revolution just as important as one that started in 1972 by Richard Nixon is taking place. While it may not be a week that changed the world, it certainly is the months that will change mankind. So the question I ask you today, that I propose to you, is why is India so important for the USA and the world today? Its importance rests on a three-legged stool: demographics, democracy, and digitization. Let me explain them to you. It is often said in economics that demographics is destiny. India will be adding over the next 30 years, and the average age of that population will be 29. In 2047, when India will be 100 years independent, 20% of the world's workforce and 20% of the world's middle class will be Indian. So over 250 million people, roughly the size of the US and EU, India will be adding over the next 30 years. And the average age of that population will be 29. In 2047, a Boston consulting group study noted by 2047, every Indian will spend $240,000 in his lifetime. Now multiply $240,000 by 1.7 billion people, and that gives you the size and the extraordinary scope that exists in Indian markets. The second pillar of this tool is democracy. India and US correctly pride themselves as being the oldest democracies in the world. Let me share some stats with you. In 2019, when India last had a general election, there were 900 million registered voters, out of which 600 million cast their vote in 1 million polling booths. And there was a re-poll only out of the 1 million booths in 217 polling booths. And the results were declared in the next 12 or 24 hours after polling had closed. It was peaceful transfer of power that we have learned from America. But seriously, the most important point is of the 600 million voters who registered their franchise across multiple political parties in India, 90 million were first-time voters. And this is the aspiring class in India, which is no different than the people and the students staying in Northridge or staying in Netherlands. Democracy, of course, changes slowly compared to central leadership, and it's very uneven, but the results are more lasting in a democracy. Almost 50 years ago, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon and said these famous words, that it is a small step for man, but a great leap for mankind. Well, digitization is India's moonshot. It's enabling India to leak chronically poor physical infrastructure. Our digitization position started in 2015, about 96 months ago. In the 96 months, 99% of Indians have a biometric or Aadhaar card, which is a form of identification. But once they had this identification card, you could open bank accounts for them. And to facilitate this process, the government created what is known as the United Payment Interface System, or UPI system, which means that you can transact in the marketplace for amounts as low as $1.50, because payments are electronic and payments are free completely. Now this may be hard to believe, but you look at India's pace of electronic payments, you add what happened in China, France, Great Britain, and the US, India has crossed all the numbers combined times 4. That is the pace of digitization that is taking place in India, even as we speak. 300 million Indians are already using these electronic payment systems, and 50 million merchants are transacting for amounts as low as 10 cents for a cup of tea, which Indians love. 1.5 billion people connected, transacting. Think of the possibilities at zero cost that has happened. Here's the thing that you all should remember, that India was the fastest growing economy prior to the pandemic. India is now an open country for what is called foreign direct investment. We've received $900 billion since independence. Out of that, at least 50% has come in the last 90 months in 63 sectors and 31 states, pointing to the inclusiveness and the width of the foreign direct investments. You may be surprised to know this, that in the next few years, 25% of your beloved iPhones will be manufactured out of India. And this might also surprise you. Out of the Fortune 500 US companies, of the top 500 companies in the US, 450 of them have an office already in Bangalore. India will provide the largest number of STEM graduates, and your largest international bodies will be from India. So it behooves a lot of universities to recruit actively from India. If you want STEM graduates in America, you will have to recruit them from people from places like India. And if, for example, the immigration in the United States does not allow that to happen, US universities and US business and US capital will move to India. About 200 million people in India speak English fluently. In India, more people are fond of cricket and more people watch the finals of a cricket series than they would watch the Super Bowl or Major League Baseball. It might be time for Major League Baseball or the NFL to recruit players and do content that is more specific. I'm happy to share with you that one company in America that gets it is Netflix. I recently read an interview with Ted Sarandos, told everyone that you should watch Indian shows, and he particularly pointed out 2 shows, Indian Matchmaking and Romantics, to understand Indian culture and Bollywood. And I'm even more pleased to tell you that those shows were directed by my niece, who's with us today. Smriti, take a bow. And just to introduce you, she's obviously from the Indian diaspora. My sister is here, who 40 years ago fed me, housed me, kept me in America. My wife is here. But Smriti is now making a career in Hollywood, not Bollywood, but Hollywood. And she has been twice nominated for the Emmy and once for the Oscar. So at 40, she has a huge degree of involvement. There is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that there is something called American exceptionalism. And America is still the beacon that lights the path for the world. In conclusion, I'd like to share with you a quote by Albert Camus, the philosopher, who said, "Freedom is nothing but a chance to be better." And then to further quote Robert Kennedy of his generation, which I say for our generation, "If not us, who? If not now, when?" The world and global economy need American and Indian leadership. If freedom reigns, mankind prospers. Thank you all very much for your patient hearing.
So if you want to sit here, we are going to have a little bit of a Q&A here. So you said you were an international student.
Right.
So what made you, come to the U.S.? I mean, obviously you thought of the great education here, but how did your family react that I'm going to go to the U.S. And go to college? Or...
like I mentioned in my speech, Wendy, I was always fascinated by U.S. I used to read Time magazine, which was my window into American society. Luckily for me, I had a sister who was already here. And for many years as an undergraduate student, she fed me, clothed me, housed me. So I was lucky. I had a connection there. And because my brother-in-law was teaching at CSUN, I decided to come to CSUN.
That's great. And I think a lot of, I'm curious in the room here, how many of you are first generation that when you graduate, you'll be your first in your family to graduate from college? That's great. Because we were talking about that.
That always surprises me. It always surprises me that many people are first-time graduates.
And if you don't mind me asking, how many of you, are your parents or you are immigrants, came from another country?
That's the story of America.
That is the story of America. We're proud of it at CSUN, the kind of diversity that we have here. So you said something in your remarks that there was a week that changed the world, that Nixon said there was a week that changed the world. Do you have a week that changed your world for you?
When I got married?
Yeah, no, that was the right answer. For those of you who didn't, he said when he got married. I'm going to tell my husband that he needs to use that when I ask that question.
But actually, truly, Wendy, I mean, what flipped my switch was when I had my son. Being a father is a extraordinary experience in life, and I was a pretty easygoing, laid back, let's see what life has type of guy. Till I had my son Ashok, who's not here unfortunately today, and he went to USC, so I couldn't bring him here. But to me that was the big trigger point in my life. I knew I wanted a legacy for him. I knew I wanted him to look up to his father. So that really changed me. That was the moment that changed me.
Well, and I think we all want our kids to have more opportunities even than we did,
Absolutely.
and support them. And I'm sure your families all feel that same way. You talked a little bit about the U.S. economy and how great it is and exceptionalism in America. How would you compare the economy of India to the U.S., as far as the kind of GDP things that we have versus what may be in India?
Yeah, I'll just tell you, I have two professional careers. My first career is, I started as a broker on the Bombay Stock Exchange, which is the equivalent of the New York Stock Exchange. But very soon I realized that I didn't want to make the commission of 0.25% or 1% that you made. I want to make the 100% by the stock appreciation. So I became a proprietary investor from being a broker very early on in my career. And then I had the good fortune to meet some extraordinary gentleman in India who was building this extraordinary company called Avenue Supermarts. And I am privileged to serve on the board as its chairman. And those are two different aspects of my life. When a lot of you, how many of you are Laker fans out here? Okay, great. Well, not as many.
How about Clipper? Clipper? No. Oh, God. Oh. Okay.
So when I was in LA, as Wendy remembers, Pat Riley became the coach of the LA Lakers, and he had a very successful career. But he was a temporary coach. Someone got fired, and so Jerry Buss made Pat Riley the coach of the Lakers. And so they were going through a very bad period, a very bad losing streak. And Pat Riley became the coach, and they won like 10 in a row. And someone asked him at a press conference, he said, what is the secret of his success? And he said, I just get them to show up. That's all I do. And I think that's my job also at Avenue Supermarts. At the board, I try to build get them to keep excited about the company they are and the business they're doing. And what you're dribbling is a slice of a better life. Good prices, good assortment, just trying to do. It was inspired. Avenue Supermarts is now one of the largest market cap companies in India, among the top 10 market cap companies in India. It was inspired by Walmart, so it was inspired by cutting prices, giving customers services, giving customers a good assortment of goods. So again, the influence of America runs deep within me and within the companies I serve in.
How do you decide in your current, kind of world, and when you were investing in these, kind of being one of those angel investors there, how do you decide whether you're going to invest in a company? Is it all numbers? Is it the heart, your gut about what's right? Where, how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, I mean, what I pay a lot of attention is valuation of a particular business. I mean, it does not necessarily apply to angel investing, because at angel investing, you have to bet on the promoter or the entrepreneur. How hungry is it? What integrity does he have? And what is the opportunity size that he sees in that particular atmosphere? So I think what we try and do in that angel investing is try and eyeball the management, see who's the guy running the business. Does he have that fire in his belly, to build? India is such a great opportunity because you have 1.4 billion customers, okay, all are hungry for a better life, or even, better fast food, or, better hairdresser, or better, technology, credit card interface. So we try to judge the talent, the entrepreneurial talent, more than anything else, because the valuations will be somewhat skewed in a startup business.
Do you have a favorite deal?
Yes, of course I do. Well, I told the class, Professor Berry's class that I was teaching yesterday, that a deal that actually made me a lot of money, and still is the deal I regret the most. Now, that might be contrary to what I'm saying, but let me explain the deal to you. Thanks again to living and working in America, I became very familiar with the concept called happy hour, right? So you go, you enjoy a few drinks, with your people at work. And the other part of that was that in the 70s, I'd seen a Bollywood film, which, sometimes you should see it on YouTube. I think maybe we'll organize it somehow, called Diwar. And I always remember a particular scene in that, in which there's a hero and his lady sitting in a bar, and the hero and the heroine pivots to the guy and says, you know, this alcohol is an amazing thing. This guy is drinking because he's happy. This guy is drinking because he's sad. This guy is drinking because he's alone. This guy is drinking because of his friends. I realized very early on it's a universal lubricant, right? So happy hour, universal lubricant. Fast forward, 2000. I was looking at stock market, looking at deals all my life, and I saw this particular company that owned 50% of India's liquor market, 50% of India's liquor market, okay, available for about $100 million US. I just couldn't believe that. Think of the stats that went through my head. 1 billion people, no social restrictions against drinking in terms of religion at least, and each year 5-10 million people becoming adults and getting into the drinking age. And you're getting all this business, these comparable businesses like Anheuser-Busch or San Miguel in the Philippines or Corona in Mexico, worth billions of dollars. And here I was getting this huge business in this huge country for $100 million. So long story short, I managed to buy some shares and the stocks went up 50, 100x from the time I bought that. So that was good. I made a lot of money. My wife bought a lot of jewelry for it. Why was it bad? Why was it bad? And that's the thing I learned in the stock market, that occasionally you'll get some great opportunities in your life. You might get 2, 3, 4 opportunities in your lifetime. At that time, you can't be happy buying 10,000 shares or 20,000 shares. You have to back up the truck and buy big time. Where it's that moment in time where you can't lose money, and if it goes right, you'll make a lot of money. And I could have bought 5% of the company for maybe $5 million US at that time. I had the money at that time. So I had the money at that time, $5 million to buy 5% of the company. And think of it the other way. If I had bought 5% of the company, out of every 20 bottles being sold of beer in India, one was mine. Of every liquor, one bottle was mine of 20. I mean, I could not see that because I was still scared, not understanding the business perhaps. But so I did make a lot of money in that. I'm very happy about that. My wife is happier about that. But I should have made a lot. I could have owned, I could have been, in India's Rockefeller. I mean, I could have bought 5% of the liquor business for $100 million. I mean, it's still hard for me to believe that number.
What's the drinking age? I know you're all wondering what the drinking age is in India.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I started early. I don't know what it is.
Because we're still 21. And of course, none of us drink before we're 21.
Of course not.
Of course not, ever. I have a 19-year-old, so that's what he tells me. So who was your, did you have a mentor kind of through all of this, that someone who helped you? And what was maybe some of the best advice your mentor gave you?
I did have a mentor, and I want to talk a bit seriously about it because, you all need mentors in life. It's very important to, the basic principle should be that you become the people you associate with. So you want to associate with better people. So you will also become better in life. So I would urge all of you young people to associate with people who are better than you, wiser than you, older than you, smarter than you, because ultimately you will end up becoming like the people you associate with. So it's very important you associate. Now, I got really lucky one day. I went into America. Imagine in the world of investment, everyone knows Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch, all right? Imagine if I came to America and in the first week, I happened to have Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and Peter Lynch as my neighbors, or they were just having coffee with me or, shooting the breeze with me at a Starbucks. Something like that happened to me. It's extraordinary luck that I met 2, 3 of the most extraordinary people. And these names, you'll hear about over periods of time. But there's one particular gentleman I'd like to talk to you about, the person who built DMart as an entrepreneur on whose board I serve. Extraordinary individual that I met on the floor of the stock exchange. And I would like to say to you 2 things. First is that he reminds me a lot of Steve Jobs. Now, that's a really tall claim to give. Steve Jobs reinvented so many industries. He reinvented, computers, animation, electronics, right? So here's this guy, his name is, he shares my last name, and we're friends but not related to each other. He built companies. He's one of the most extraordinary investors in India. And I mean, truly, I would rate him to be number 1 to 5, and number 6 would be someone else. Not only did he reinvent the stock market business in India, of how to invest, how to speculate, but then in 2000, inspired by Sam Walton, he went and built this great retail chain, starting with 1 store, now having 350 stores perhaps, this retail chain called Avenue Supermarts. And he's been a very persistent influence in my life. And he's taught me so many things about integrity, about sizing up the opportunity. And he chided me for making such a poor bet in United Spirits. If you're convinced you should have made a bigger bet, you should have gone all out for that bet. But one of the more important things he taught me was that in Wall Street, there's a saying that if you want a friend, get a dog. It's a dog-eat-dog out world in Wall Street, in world of high finance. And he said he looked at it the other way. He said, in the markets, financial markets, is like a river flowing, right? If you take 2 buckets out of water, there's not going to be less water in the river, all right? So if you help someone else, that's fine. That person will add to your intelligence, add to your friendship over periods of time. And so I started looking at the markets differently. I'm very willing to share ideas with young people who come and ask me respectfully as to what I think about the market, because I think we all benefit from that. I don't think there's a particularly secretive world to be had by not sharing or talking openly about some of the ideas that you might have, because we tend to help each other. If anyone has a bad idea, the other person can cross that out. So he's taught me many, many things in life, but more importantly, how to dream big. I think that's the most important takeaway I got from him.
That's good advice. And I think mentors, and I know how much, Chandra, you as the dean feel how important that is for there to be mentorship programs, and so many of our faculty same way about doing that. Is there something you remember fondly about CSUN that you learned, or a skill or something that you'd say, this is why I remember CSUN? Because a lot of people will go to CSUN, and although you will have had a good time and got a good education, they don't always come back after they're successful to give back. And you have. And
well, I learned how to be a good boss, So I tell all my employees now that, don't think of me as a boss. Think of me as a friend who's never wrong. I learned punctuality at CSUN, but, unfortunately, no one was around to see me. So, no, but to be more serious, Wendy, what did I learn at CSUN? I was enthralled with America. I mean, at some point, I remember telling my sister that I think even the mud puddles in America are better than in India. So the reason I did is because the amount of trust that Americans place in Younes society, I found that extraordinary. I mean, my first job was at a computer company, and my boss threw me the keys and said, if you want to come on the weekend, here are the keys. I mean, I had access to the whole computer. His whole life savings was perhaps in that business. But he just trusted me that I would do right. So CSUN taught me these values of humor, of, openness, of, cultural nuances of understanding. It was an extraordinary experience for a young man from India. I was always fascinated by America. And as I pointed out in my slide, that, Robert Fulghum must have learned in kindergarten. I learned at CSUN.
Pretty great. And I think that's a good message for all of the students that are here to learn part of it. So was there a really big career challenge? Like, was there a moment that you thought, this is not going to go the way I want it, or I didn't go in the right direction, or something that was a challenge for you?
Well, the family is always the hardest to please, right? So the first challenge was convincing my wife to move back to India. I used to tell her that, we can invest in these great companies and do things. She said, Ramesh, I need a sofa set. I don't need a great company. I cannot live in the Dow Jones, and I need a desk and a chair. So I had a young son who, also thought we weren't well-to-do because I was living under the radar in my first years of my career. But the thing that liberated me, Wendy, when I understood this financial concept, it kind of liberated me. I realized that I too could be rich. And here's the concept. I think all of you know it, but I don't think a lot of us practice it. It's called compounding. It's how money actually becomes wealth. So if you look at, you start with $10,000 and you can compound that. What we try to do, let me explain it another way. What we try to do in India, at least what I try to do, I should not even say in India, what I try to do is double my money every 3 years. I mean, that's the goal of my business, to double my money every 3 years. Now, if you have a 30-year professional career ahead of you, say you start working at 25, you work till 60, roughly 35 years professional career. In that span of 35 years, if you double your money every 3 years, you will have 10 doubles of your wealth. You'll have 10 doubles of your wealth. And if you look at that money, that $100,000 becomes $100 million over 35 years, if you consistently compound that money over a 30, 35-year period. And that's very hard for people to understand because, the payoffs come at the end of the journey, not at the beginning of the journey. So you will see that, that 100,000 has become 120,000, 140,000. That's not going to change my life. But the value of that compounding over a 30-year period means whatever you start off with becomes 100x than what you started off with. And anything times 100, trust me, is a lot of money. So I think, to me, that was the moment of, once I understood compounding, it kind of liberated me because I didn't care. There's always someone going to be richer than you or smarter than you or better dressed than you or have more toys than you. But I knew I was going to be financially free because I understood compounding, and I tried to practice that. And maybe doing it every 3 years is a bit hard, but you can do it every 4 years, every 5 years, you'll still end up with a very good packet.
And how, you made the joke a little bit about being the boss, I'm a friend that you always agree with, but what would you say is a good management? I mean, I get the sense that your employees liked you or like you, what you do. What's kind of a common theme and a common way in which you manage?
Well, I have two different roles in life. I mean, I'm a prop investor, which is a very lonesome business. It's almost you against the world. Typically, great investments no one will believe in. So you have to fight the demons and fight people mocking you and fight people, shaking it off that, that's not going to happen. Much like, say, Smriti makes a great movie, so she has to fight she has a creative idea and you have to kind of get into that creative idea. So that's part of my role as a independent, proper proprietary investor. Then again, as I told you, I'm on the board of Avenue Supermarts. And that I have to make sure that the culture remains intact. That's my job, my most important job. I have to make sure that all those people who become fairly rich now because the company is listed still are excited about coming into work and contributing every day to the company out there. So you have to lead by consensus, you have to lead by example, you have to lead by showing them a better way that this is a mission we are on. We're not running a company, we're on a mission to deliver a better life, to deliver better products to our customers. So I wear two different hats, Wendy, to be honest.
And, many people in this room will say, wow, it sounds like India with the numbers that you gave, the growth and the potential. And, would you recommend someone who may be graduating in the next year or two to go to India, to work in India? Is there, how is that seen from the perspective of that economy of Americans coming to and working in India?
Oh, definitely I would do that. I think I felt that very strongly after the Berlin Wall fell, that the world was going to globalize and that our next job might be in Boston or it might be in Mumbai. I had no idea about that. But the opportunities are all over the world. And I think despite this rollback of globalization that is happening right now in the world, and that people are saying that, we won't get our stuff from China, or we should, instead of offshore, nearshore back to America, I think it's inevitable. I mean, for example, to give you an example, in the computer science stream, data and analyticals, I think everyone needs data and everyone needs to analyze data very carefully out there. But all that work is going to be done in India because you can't find data scientists in enough numbers in America to do it, okay? It has to be done in India. So the sooner you learn cultural context, whether it's in India or whether it's going to Africa or whether it's going to Singapore, I think the better off all your students are in this matter. And I have no doubt that over the next 30, 40 years, among your international students, the largest batch of students will be Indians because you are the most population. So it has to be the largest batch of Indians. And you're going to interact with them. So you might learn the cultural nuance of Indians. You also might learn as to what, movies they like or watch romantics, which my niece has done. So it'll give you...
It's on Netflix, just if you want to see it.
Yes, absolutely. I get paid for this, right?
Yeah.
So, I think definitely. I think it's the. While it may not be popular at this time, I think we should think of ourselves as global citizens and see opportunity wherever we see it in the world, not necessarily in the 50 square miles of where we were born.
There's a lot of talk about inflation in the U.S. right now and raising the interest rates and, what's inflation like? Is it comparable in India? Is it, what's kind of the market compared to the U.S. at the moment?
I think the U.S. is spoiled. I think for 40 years, you guys had no inflation. I remember the last time you had inflation was 78, 79 when Jimmy Carter was president and oil prices went up and, inflation was on the cover story of Time magazine. And, you had a very good Federal Reserve Governor, Paul Volcker, who broke the back of inflation. And for 40 years after that, you haven't had inflation out there. Indians are used to a higher standard of inflation. So at 4-6%, we don't sneeze. We are comfortable with that kind of inflation, to be honest with you. But having said that, I think the way the world is moving, inflation will not be that much a threat. One reason is that you're depopulating, okay? So when you depopulate, a lot of the businesses are going to be done by robots, right? I went to an Indian restaurant where a robot was serving me yesterday, to try some food. So
here in LA.
In LA, just, yeah.
Right next to Northridge.
Yeah, there's a robot coming and serving me out there. And I'm sure it's popular. It's not a gimmick he used. I think everyone was using it. The point is that the robots will work 3 times what human beings work and at zero variable cost. So that is deflationary. If anything is deflationary. What does a new economy require? New economy requires some computers, some wires, some air conditioning, some office space. It is not inherently as inflationary as the old economy used to be. So I think long-term, the trajectory, if you don't keep printing money, that's the only danger. If you keep printing money, that will lead to inflation without any this thing. I think inflation will be tamed maybe in the next 6 months. It gets sticky from time to time. But to me, I'd be more worried about depopulation and what that means for economic growth. Because demographics is destiny. All the countries that have a huge growing population will do better than countries that are depopulating. You can take the example of Japan, you take the example of Italy. All these companies are depopulating, and I think they have significant risks to their economy. But I think India's inflation is somewhat good, because it gets buoyancy to our growth. So am I overly worried about inflation? No, I'm not.
And obviously there's a lot of conversations here in the U.S. And I believe, immigration is like what makes us unique. And it's the workforce, and because we are depopulating in some ways, without immigration, we're not going to be able to have the workforce that we have in the future. So what's the kind of cost of living? And in LA, particularly, California, it's a high cost of living. Housing cost is high, gas is high. I'm sure you all can tell me, everything seems higher here. What's the cost of living like in India?
Well, to answer the first question that you said, it is the one thing I genuinely don't understand of America. This country was built, I think half the class raised their hands when you said about immigration out here. So I find that astonishing, truly astonishing. I don't know if you know, but Steve Jobs' father was a Syrian immigrant. Steve Jobs, as an American icon as you can get, half his lineage was, Syrian, Syria of all places. Look at all the high-tech companies that are running in America today. Google, Facebook, all of them are run by Indians, all right? And contrary to public opinion in India, I will say this, Indians take this as a matter of pride, saying, oh, look, Indians are running the world. We're running Google, we're running Facebook, we're running, Adobe software. And I tell them they're wrong. It's a tribute. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister of Britain, is an Indian, a practicing Hindu, advising King Charles on who should be appointed the Archbishop of Canterbury. A Hindu, imagine a Hindu person. And they all say, look, this is a mind that Indians are taking over. I think that's a bunch of baloney, a bunch of Looney Tunes. It's symptomatic of the greatness of America, a symptom of the greatness of UK, that you allow merit to rise to the top. That you're not judging people who are fit for the job based on ethnicity or based on their whiteness or based on how long they live in this country, but by saying who's the best person for this job. So it pains me to say that America itself is turning its back on immigration, because it's an extraordinary culture you've created by attracting the best and the bright in the world. Why would you want to change that? It makes no sense to me to change it. In cost of living terms to India, to answer the second part of your question, India is a poor country. Our per capita is about $2,500 to $3,000 compared to $40,000 in America. In terms of purchasing power, the rupee goes a longer way than it goes out here. Purchasing power might be at $8,000 to $10,000 purchasing power. Given the fact that our trajectory is to grow at 7-8%, we will at some point, be rich and affluent. $240,000 spent in a lifetime per person, 1.7 billion. That'll give you the size of the economy. But there's opportunity after opportunity in India. I mean, grocery stores are not looked at as a great business in America. But in India, there's the very well-capitalized company. Cement businesses are in the top 10. I can't name a cement company in America, right? So there's a great opportunity to build so many products and services, auto mechanic stores, liquor stores, law firms in India. So the living standards will rise, no question about that over a period of time. But we have a long way to catch up to American standards of living.
We're going to take questions from you all, so get ready. So we have microphones to the group. I have more questions, but I want to make sure we get to everybody here. So can you raise your hand if you want to ask a question? Don't be shy. There's a gentleman over here.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Belimoria. I'm an UCLA alumni, 2018. That means I did my master's at the age of 75.
Congratulations.
Hey.
My question to Mr. Damani is, what is the kind of the usual scenario for the stock market in India? Do they have plays like option shorting and stuff like that, or is it just one way?
Great question, sir. I'll just give you some perspective because that's something I know about. India now probably has, it's probably the third or fourth largest stock market in terms of market capitalization in the world. Its volumes, I think, are more than the New York Stock Exchange. It has a very vibrant futures and options market. It has a very good settlements are done on T+1 basis, not even T+2 is done in America, it's T+1. So you buy today, by tomorrow you have delivery, or you have your cash, whatever you want. The futures and option markets settle almost every week, and the volumes are stupendous. Actually, they're stupendous. They're off the charts, the volumes in the Indian stock market. Is it easy for a foreigner to invest in India? It probably isn't. But if you're a local Indian resident, I mean, there's very easy access to markets right now. When I started in the Bombay Stock Exchange in bright day in 88, 89, I think the index was 600, right? Today it's 60,000, right? So you had a 100x move just in terms of the index. So the living has been pretty good in the Indian stock market, if you will. It has all the options, strategies that you can use here, the delta, the theta, everything is available out there too. And it has depth and liquidity also. And congratulations again on your graduation.
That's right. Back here, to John.
Hello.
My name is Mark Burns. I'm a 2008 MBA alumni from Cal State Northridge. And my question to you is, I'd like to get your perspective on one of the problems with, even with a growing economy, is the level of inequality in that economy, that much of the benefit of that growth goes to a select few. It appears to be increasing. Is that a problem in India? And what, if anything, do you think is being done or needs to be done to address that?
That's a tough question. Yeah, it is a problem. No question about it. It's a problem in America. It's a problem in India. I think some stat I read somewhere that the top 100 Indians control 60% of GDP or 70% of GDP. So yes, it is a problem. I just don't know how to solve this problem. I mean, in the sense that capitalism system works on incentives and works on people, almost like a winner-take-all part of the economy. And then you need, better tax systems and better distribution of the pie in order to make everyone wholesome and inclusive. I think I don't have a snap answer for you. I don't, should we be more inclusive? Of course, we should be more inclusive. I think clearly that, as Warren Buffett said, that if you want to design a system and you don't know where you're going to turn out, you want as equal system as you can possibly do in this world. So I still believe, what I personally believe is that, people who are wealthy in this country or wealthy in India are trustees of wealth. And as Warren Buffett has said, that 99% of the wealth he has earned, he's going to give back to society for doing healthcare or polio eradication or education. I think the rich have an obligation to do the same. And I hope they will do it in that sense rather than some draconian tax system which discourages incentives of people.
Thank you.
I don't really have a great answer. I'm sorry for that, but it's a question a bit above my pay scale.
Right. Yes, right over here, Jordan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bahare, and I'm a 2010 MBA alumni. My question for you is, if you're a mentor to somebody, what is the number one advice that you would have for them?
I think what I learned very early on was the importance of dreaming big. Let me answer this question in this way. Someone asked me, what is the biggest regret I have in my life? And I said the fact that if you had asked me when I was a CSUN student, walking the corridors here, eating at the cafeteria, that Ramesh, we're looking at your life 30 years from now, and this is where you'd be in life, I would say that's ridiculous. I'd be so happy. I'm really happy out there. The fact is, 30 years later, I am actually far better than I thought even that number was. But I'm equally frustrated and equally restless than I was 30 years back. And the reason is that I'm not a billionaire, right? Now, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I lead a good life. I am financially free. But I have to measure myself against something internally. I have to say, the opportunity ahead of me was to earn $1 billion. That's the opportunity of the last 30 years. The Sensex went from 600 to 60,000, okay? A lot of my friends who started around the same time in India became billionaires, right? Now, why did I not become a billionaire, right? And because I live well, who's to complain? Everyone's fine, I'm financially free, I can eat, drink, talk, travel when I want. But if you want to be the best in your business, if you want to win the Oscar in films, or you want to win, the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever, you have to. That is the mark of who the best you can be. Similarly, in the markets, the best you can be is the one who has the most zeros, right, in his bank balance. And the fact that I'm short in that frustrates me. because that means I didn't take full advantage of the opportunity. It was not about the money. I mean, the money helps, but don't get me wrong, I enjoy the money. But it's about not being the best in your business, all right? And that really bothers me. I mean, I don't know why. It really bothers me because, you know, you want to be the best in your business. I mean, that's the ambition of every young man. So I would tell all the younger people who asked me, is that, you know, strive to be the best. I mean, you can't be happy just because you're putting food on the table or you're financially free or you can travel to south of France. I mean, that's good, you know. But whatever profession you choose, try to be the best in that business.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Charity, up here. Go back to the young lady up there. Is your hand up back there too?
Hi, my name is Christopher Mendoza. This is my first semester at CSUN. I'm majoring in marketing and management. Hopefully a third major in honors, I'm not sure yet. But my question for you is, what would it take for someone like me to get 2 minutes of time with someone like you, a superstar like yourself? And I mean that because you mentioned earlier, there's, in a lifetime, there are 4 or 5 opportunities that are just an opportunity of a lifetime. And I believe this is one of those opportunities, not just for me, but for everyone here. And in the future, opportunities like this will be presented. So what would it take for someone like me to get 2 minutes of private conversation with someone like yourself?
You just got to buy me a cup of coffee. You got it.
I'll buy you a cup of coffee. Absolutely. I'll buy you 10 cups of
I'll
coffee.
give you my card, email me. So I don't know what you have in mind. You have an idea in mind, that's what you're saying? Or you were just wanting to talk to someone? What is the purpose?
You also mentioned buckets of water. And I would love to receive a bucket of water from yourself in terms of wisdom and maybe in the future something else. I do have a startup that I do run as well. I'm combating school shootings. I'm fighting the gun violence that we see in public today. It's a startup that I'm hoping to start within the CSUN community. So I do think in the future there might be an opportunity as well for maybe you know, some help, some investment, something like that. But
I'd be happy to share with
looking
you my business card.
Okay, but I'm more referring to like wisdom, you know, questions, stuff like that. But
Understood. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well,
That's
thank
a
you.
great question. And mentors and taking advantage of that is a really good thing. And it is that 2 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I feel like having this conversation with Ramesh today is something that I will always remember and I will think about whatever I'm going to do. And I hope each of you in this room, the same thing. I remember in high school, someone who came and spoke and inspired me. And that's why this distinguished speaking series is so important, because a little bit of what you get, whether it's 2 minutes and an email back and forth, or the fact that it changes that you want to be able to think big and do things differently and think about going to another country. That's what this is about, and really a privilege to have Ramesh. So I'm glad you asked that question.
And I do agree, Mr. Damani. Yeah, this talk today really inspired me, and I'm sure everyone feels the same. If you could do it, then I'm sure we all can as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Great. The young lady back there, I think, yes.
Hi, my name is Isabel Asadorian. I'm a student here at CSUN. I'm majoring in marketing. Firstly, I want to thank you, Mr. Damani, for your presentation. It was very insightful. So you refer in your speech about Nixon's presidency and how that was a significant period and that's affected your future in particular, or future careers. My question is, are there any other leaders that you share significance with or have affected your career that have brought you insightful knowledge for your career?
Yeah, there are 2 as a matter of fact. The first was, again, someone who was Prime Minister of Britain in the 70s, 1975, 80, Margaret Thatcher. She always said that she's a politician of conviction, you know. And if you remember, you go back to the era and study what she did. Great Britain was, you know, on the downswing. People were unemployed. You know, the utilities weren't working properly, and she just fired all the trade unions and just privatized every single public sector holding in India. And you know, somehow how the dots connect in your life. When I went to India in 1989, the government had started on a similar program to privatize its public sector holdings. And I remembered what the opportunity that she gave when she privatized everything in Great Britain and the amount of money you could have made. Again, an opportunity came up in the late 90s when Russia was privatizing all its state-owned enterprises. Unfortunately, that became a bit of a land grab, if you will. So that didn't work out too well for the public at this time. So I remember those two examples, and I use those examples in investing in India. Then, of course, the politician that I always admire is Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore, late Lee Kuan Yew. I mean, the kind of, in barely a generation, he took Singapore from a third world country to a first world country, whose per capita income is higher than UK, higher than US even today. All right, extraordinary job that politicians can do if they get their act together. So Margaret Thatcher, Lee Kuan Yew, and maybe even Boris Yeltsin for what he did in terms of privatizing. At least he changed the system in Russia. I mean, Russia is not a very popular subject right now, but at that time he changed the economic trajectory of communism and state planning into a free market enterprise, which benefited, I think, humanity as a whole.
I think we're going to take a few more questions, but I think what that demonstrates too is that we are in an that finance is international and it is global, and understanding the other.
Yeah, absolutely, it really helps. Yes,
it really does. And I will tell you, he knows a lot about LA politics and US politics. We had a great conversation the other night. So kind of understanding, because politics sometimes and finance and all of that business are intertwined.
I know a little bit about some of the things. Wendy knows everyone and everything. So
I told him that. That's what he said. So any other questions we have out there? Yes, there. And we got two more here. Oh, we'll come to you. You'll be the third one. Okay, this young lady here, this gentleman here, and then you in the back.
My name is Narali Garcia, and I guess my question to you would be, what was the probably biggest self-obstacle that you had to push through to kind of get where you are, in the sense of like, not your achievements outside, but inside,
That's a great question. I think a lot of us suffer from insecurity. If you look back at my life, I think my mother used to worry that I couldn't make a living, so it's very difficult to have the belief. I mean, you think of the audacity of what I told you, that I'm a middle-class kid from Mumbai, India, grew up with a few dollars of pocket money. And I'm telling you, my biggest regret is that I'm not a billionaire, okay? I mean, there are 4,000 billionaires in the world. To me, it smacks of, audacity. But that's the opportunity that the world is giving you, okay? And you have to seize that opportunity, all right? And I think there's something that's always limiting you because you believe you either don't deserve it or it can't happen to you. So you have to overcome those mental obstacles in order to, achieve your true potential in any business, whether it's, being a lawyer or whether being a hairdresser or whether being in the stock market as I'm doing. And I feel you have to, the game is played here, not necessarily anywhere else. So I think overcoming those obstacles, and I'm still, it's a work in progress, so it is still hard for me to overcome, but it's deeply regretful. I mean, if the opportunity to make $1 billion, you didn't make it, then you have to kick yourself, no matter how well you are or how comfortably you live. That's not the criteria. The criteria is what could have been.
Thanks.
Right here, Charity. And then the gentleman standing up over there, I think.
Hello, my name is Gerardo. I have a question. So you had advice for individuals to read several hours. What are your go-to sources for stock ideas?
Go-to sources for stock ideas.
We're all listening on this one, okay?
I read a lot. I mean, it's one of those businesses that reading is your raw material. So, I think Charlie Munger said it best, that he's a book with two legs. So if you read 2 hours, I'd say read 4 hours. And when you read, you just get a little bit better every day. It's not like you're going to get a great idea. But sometimes you'll connect the dots. Like I connected the dots in the public sector, what Margaret Thatcher does and how much value was created there. Or there's a guy in Carlos Slim in Mexico who made a huge fortune buying the public sector companies in Mexico And then when they became privatized, like Telephone de Mexico or some beer company, he made a huge amount of money. So reading helps you connect the dots, what's happening in the world, what's not happening in the world. So I read all the basic stuff, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, Barron's, non-traditional stuff like, Psychology Today, Atlantic Magazine, New Yorker Magazine, because you just never know, what cultural trend is going to be in the forefront tomorrow. I'll tell you one thing, just to give you an example, if that helps you again. I came to America sometime in 2000 on a visit out there. And I left America in 1990 to go back to India. So I came back after a period of 10, 15 years. I hadn't been to America. And I realized credit card usage had exploded in America. That when I was in America, no one paid for groceries by credit card. You paid by cash or check. Here, those $5 payment that you're making through credit card. Suddenly, credit cards become prevalent in American society. And then in 2005, I think MasterCard went public, okay? And it went public, and I was sitting in my Bombay office when I read Barron's, which said, MasterCard is going to IPO, I still remember it today, at $5 billion market cap. It didn't make any sense to me. I mean, MasterCard, something that everyone has in his wallet, is used in every country in the world, is one of the great brand names in the world, was available for $5 billion. And the rest is history. Today, it's closer to $400 billion, right? So you just read, just absorb the information, and you'll get ideas. So the idea is just to read, and over time you'll start connecting dots and start making sense to you. I don't think you should read from the idea that, I want to get an idea out of this, You just read, and then ultimately ideas will pop on to your head because of that.
Last question.
Last question.
Yeah, real quick. I couldn't hear his question earlier. I think it was pretty similar, but when it comes to investing in stocks, what portion of it is mathematics versus logic and digestion of news or books?
What they teach you in MBA school is, what they call discounted cash flow methods, how to value companies out there. But investment is also about psychology, and investment is also about gut feeling. So I would say my particular style is to look at the market capitalization of various businesses and see if they're below what I think. Like when I saw MasterCard, I knew that it was silly valued at $5 billion. It could be valued at $50 billion. It would have made a difference. All right. Now there's some reason why it was valued at $5 billion, but that's how you kind of make the connection. When I looked at the Indian liquor market, I said, how can it be valued at $100 million? It doesn't make any sense to me. So it doesn't require a lot of mathematics down to 2 decimal points, but it does require some innate understanding of how big the opportunity is. Imagine the Indian liquor market, how big it can be in 20, 30 years, all right? So it requires more of a vision and a bit more of dreaming than exactly hard mathematical science. So a lot of people do that and, do fairly well also, but that's not my style.
So I want to invite our dean, who I think has been the best dean, of course, at the Nazarian College. But first, as we invite him up, let's give a great round of applause to Ramesh Damani, who's just fantastic. Fantastic. All right, I think you have a presentation.
Oh, lovely.
This has been quite a treat. I know several of them have left because they have all 7 o'clock classes.
Yeah.
But this has been quite a treat. And just the fact that Mr. Damani has actually traveled all the way from India to come and visit with all of you as students and gave a presentation, I'm just very excited. This has been an absolute treat. And I've now actually heard him talk once in an investment class and here, and by the way, I learned a lot. Thank you so much. This has been very impressive in terms of what you've been able to achieve. And that's one of the things that we have done with every October. We have a professor for a day. I know Mr. Damani actually has participated in Professor for a Day all the way from India.
By Zoom calls.
By Zoom calls, right? And we'll continue doing that. So for this, by the way, I wanted to make sure I presented this. And this says, by the way, CSUN Nazarian, Younes Nazarian, Distinguished Speaker Series, Ramesh Damani, 1979, and MS in 81, Leadership in a Global Economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for honoring me, Dean. I really appreciate that. And thank you all. I really appreciate it. And It's as an honor for me to come and walk these hallowed halls again.
Thank you. And so I also want to sort of say thank you for Wendy Gruel, who did a great job actually moderating this, by the way. So as Mr. Damani said, actually, the part of the reason she's an executive in residence at Nazarian because she knows everybody in LA.
And everything.
And everything, and she can connect everything. So I wanted to sort of leave you one thing, by the way, as we finish this particular thing. So we do run this Distinguished Speaker Series on a semester basis. So please do come when these are invited, because as Wendy mentioned, by the way, we are back to in-person, and we will continue doing this. The other piece I want to leave you with is, by the way, one of the things, as Ramesh was talking about in terms of what you're looking forward to and what is it that you need to plan to, you may be hearing a lot of information out there about about what we call the skills gap between what we graduate students with and what the market is looking for. And one of the things that I wanted you to know, by the way, if you have not been discussed in class, at least in the College of Business, that many departments actually will make sure or at least encourage you to actually take certifications from third-party vendors, either with IBM or whether with Amazon, whether it's Google, and you may want to take that because it adds on to your degree plan, right? It sort of says, I've got this degree, I've got a BSBA in marketing, but I've also got Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Displays. I've got this degree in accounting, and I've got the IRS certification, I've got an Excel certification. In essence, employers want to see what skills you have beyond what degree you have. And so all of you who are business majors, by the way, you want to be able to have that discussion in your departments, with your faculty, to see how you can grow beyond just getting a degree and graduating. So use as many of the resources we have at the college. Thank you all for coming. And by the way, the reception is right over there. Mr. Damani will still be here, and you may want to have more questions for him as you're there.
I owe him a business card.
Right? Thank you all, and have a great reception.